So it's been 14 years since The Dark Knight Rises released, and in that time, opinions on the movie have become quite divided over the years. When it first released, it was generally seen as a very satisfying ending to the trilogy, despite a couple of flaws, and was loved by a lot of people. Over the years though, perception to it has changed, as more and more people have tended to dislike the movie and consider it disappointing, though there are of course many people who still really like it. Therefore, I figured now would be a good time to go back and look over it to see what my thoughts and feelings on the movie are and whether I think it serves as a satisfying ending to the Dark Knight trilogy. Without further ado, let's get into it. The film opens quite strongly with the introduction of Bane, who looks to be being held captive by a group of CIA agents. This is of course all part of his plan so he can kidnap Dr. Pavel. Speaking of Bane, I'll just get my thoughts on this version of the character now. Overall, I like Bane in this movie. Now sure, he's not the most comic accurate version of the character or anything, but honestly, you could say that about a lot of the other villains in the other Batman films, and just other comic book films in general. I think he's ultimately still a good villain, and in fairness, they do keep his general backstory of being born in a prison, and they keep his intelligence, instead of just making him a dumb brute like some other versions tend to. And he does serve very well as a true physical threat to Batman, in contrast to the Joker, who is more of a mental threat. Also, he does have some pretty sick quotes. I don't even mind his silly voice as much as some other people do. With that said, I do have some issues with Bane, specifically regarding his parts of his motivation and a certain twist towards the end of the film, but I'll elaborate more on that later. I also do wish they kept in the Venom addiction from the comics. I'm not saying he needs to turn into a hulking monster, as that wouldn't really fit these movies, but just make it so it makes him a little stronger and a little more durable, as the Venom connection is a pretty important aspect to his character I feel, and I think it easily could have been included in. Anyways, the opening action scene is very cool and well directed, and shows just how cunning Bane is immediately before he could pull something like this off, and how devoted his followers are to his goal, even if it's not known what their plan is yet. It's clear this scene is meant to try and top the Dark Knight's opening, but who cares, it's still really cool. Anyways, after the opening, we see that it's been 8 years since the death of Harvey Dent, and this is where my first big issue with the movie comes in, and that's the fact that it's revealed Bruce has been retired for the past 8 years, ever since the ending of The Dark Knight. My first issue of this is the fact that it really messes up the pacing of the movie. You see, this movie takes elements from The Dark Knight Returns and the Nightfall storyline, specifically the ideas of Batman coming out of retirement after many years, as well as Bane breaking Batman's back and putting him out of commission for a while. The problem with this is that it leaves very little Batman in this Batman movie. It's probably the least screen time Batman gets out of any of the films. You have to spend the first 45 minutes of the movie building up to Batman's grand return and showing Bruce get back into the swing of things, as well as what all the other characters like Gordon have yet to, and set up these new characters, and how Gotham is doing without Batman. And when we finally do see him return, he then proceeds to get his back broken 20 minutes later, and we don't see Bruce's Batman again until the climax of the movie. Also, it does raise the question of how long Bruce's career as Batman actually was. The Dark Knight takes place a year or maybe 2 years after The Dark Knight, so he's the only Batman for 2 years. His career as Batman should have been a bit longer, and really try and give the explanation that Gotham's safe now, and crime levels are at an all-time low of the Dent Act, and his physical injuries also crop with him, but still, this is a Batman film at the end of the day, so I think it would have worked better if he was still operating as Batman at the beginning. Just keep it more of a low profile, and maybe shorten the time jump if it's too unbelievable for this more grounded Batman to be operating as Batman for that long. We'd also get to see more instances of Batman having to outmaneuver the police, as that's something that was teased at the end of The Dark Knight with him now being hunted by them, but we never really got to see much of that outside of one chase scene, so that'd be another benefit of him still being Batman at the beginning of the film. I think Bruce's arc could also remain intact, but instead of being a depressed and sad recluse in his mansion, he'd now be completely absorbed by his role as Batman following the death of Rachel, and completely neglectful of his life as Bruce Wayne, kind of like in the new Batman film. Anyways, we see Gordon debate whether to tell the truth about Harvey Dent, and I do like seeing more of his conflict over keeping the secret after Harvey tried to kill his son, and how much it's beaten him up on the inside, and how he clearly hates the fact that he has to lie to everyone about what really happened, and Gary Oldman gives a great performance in this movie like always. We're also introduced to Selina Kyle for the first time, as he steals the pearls and meets Bruce for the first time, who's now using a cane, and has been out of the public eye for a long time. I do like Anne Hathaway's Catwoman, and in terms of personality, there is a closer resemblance to the comics version than the previous iteration, even though Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman is still my favourite live action version. They do a good job showing how deceptive she is, like in that scene where the building is under attack, and the cops are swarming in, and she's acting all scared to make herself look innocent, only for her whole demeanour to immediately change when they're out of sight, and back to being her usual self. With that said, I do think she doesn't get quite as much time to shine as she should, due to the movie juggling so many other things, so she feels a bit misplaced at times in the story. She plays a big role in the first third of the movie, but then she sort of fades to the background around the middle of the movie, and doesn't have much to do until she appears back during the climax, though I do like her arc, and return to save Batman at the end, and learn to help others and not just herself. With that said, her relationship with Batman didn't get quite as much development as it should have, so them ending up together at the end didn't feel quite as earned. They did not have much time to really explore the dynamic. Anyways, Bruce heads back to the Batcave to try and find out more intel on her, and talks with Alfred, who's upset that Bruce won't move on with his life and is staying curled up and depressed inside his mansion, as Alfred explains what he wanted for him and pretty much tells us how the movie will end. Despite not being a fan of Bruce being retired to begin, I do like his arc in this movie for the most part. At the beginning, we see that Bruce is a hollow shell of his former self, who seems to have a death wish and is just waiting for things to go bad again, and throughout the movie he has to regain the will to live and move on with his life, and I do think it's handled well throughout the movie. Anyways, after stealing Bruce's fingerprint, she gives them away to Daggett, only for them to double-cross her, but she first saw this and contacted the cops who stormed the building. Gordon chases one of them and gets captured, but manages to escape and is saved by Blake. Blake then goes to Wayne Manor and in one of the dumbest moments of the movie, feels he knows Batman is Bruce. How did he discover this? Oh, just the look on his face when he saw Bruce visit his orphanage at one point. I mean, come on, really? That's how he managed to figure it out? Couldn't they just have found a different reason for him to learn Batman's identity other than this? I mean, damn, Clark Kent's disguise wouldn't be worth a damn against this guy. Anyways, after hearing the news about Gordon, Bruce heads to the hospital to meet him. He tells them Batman must come back to stop Bane. He then heads to the ball where he meets Selina, as they see a little bit more of the dynamic at play here. I even get a funny moment where she manages to steal his car. After this, he meets up with Lucius, and Morgan Freeman does a great job as always, and Lucius is definitely one of the most likeable characters, who's nice to see him back. He then tells Bruce Wayne Enterprises is under threat of a takeover from Daggett, and he also shows Bruce the Batwing, sort of nudging him to go back to being Batman. Anyways, Bruce then heads back to the Batcave and fixes his leg up very easily with that leg brace. Really? That's all it took to get it fixed up? Yeah, this was pretty silly. And then he proceeds to talk to Alfred about Brain. Whilst I'm not a big fan of what they do with Alfred in this movie, I do like this moment, as Alfred can see that maybe Bruce does actually want to fail and doesn't care about his own well-being, and simply sees this as an opportunity to go down fighting, which makes Alfred incredibly worried. Anyways, Bane launches his attack on the stock exchange and kidnaps a few hostages to make his getaway as the police chase after him. This is also the first moment you finally see Batman make his comeback, and it's kind of underwhelming, not gonna lie. I mean, I was expecting his return to be this really badass moment. He kind of just rides in on his Batpod, knocks one guy over, and then just kind of stands there awkwardly for a moment as he fails to capture the other driver. Honestly, one of my issues with this movie is not only is Batman himself not in it that much in the Batsuit, it's also whenever he is on screen he doesn't get a ton of cool moments. In fact, one of my criticisms is that Batman sort of gets less cool as these movies go on. He's great in Batman Begins, still had some good moments in Dark Knight, but in Dark Knight Rises, Batman sometimes just doesn't feel as intimidating as he should be, even when he returns later on for a second time. This is in large part due to the fight choreography being honestly not that good in these movies. I've also never really been a big fan of this Batsuit all that much. I know this is said a lot, but Batman's voice just sounds so ridiculous in this movie. Even the chase scene here isn't anywhere as good as the one in Dark Knight, and honestly, the action in general is a downgrade in comparison to that movie. Anyways, Batman manages to escape using the Batwing and goes off to save Catwoman. We get a funny moment where she disappears when he looks away, and afterwards he heads back to the Batcave to talk with Alfred, who's not on board with Batman's return. And yeah, like I said before, I'm not a big fan of this moment. Alfred tells Bruce he doesn't want him to die, so he walks away, leaving him to get killed. Like, what? I see what they're going for here, and both Christian Bale and Michael Caine do a great job acting here, but I don't see Alfred ever just leaving Bruce like this. Yes, I can see there being some conflict, as Bruce isn't as strong as he once was. Alfred would obviously be worried about if he's doing this for the right reasons, but come on now. Afterwards, Bruce wakes up the next day to find Alfred gone, and Lucia comes around to tell him that for the moment he's completely broke. Bruce shows Miranda the fusion reactor and leaves Wayne Enterprises, and later on, out of nowhere, Bruce and Miranda hook up. I get they're doing this to make the betrayal hit harder later, but there's no reason Bruce would fall for her this quickly, so I just feels forced. Anyways, Batman meets up with Catwoman, who offers to show him where Bane is, but it turns out to be a trap, as Catwoman betrays him and Batman comes face to face with Bane for the first time. I have to say, I really like this scene, even though the fighting still seems a bit fake in some instances here. I actually don't mind the fight choreography in this scene as much, as this is supposed to be a worn down, weaker version of Batman than we've seen previously. He's not as on top of his game, and the scene conveys that very well. In fact, this is one of the few times throughout any Batman movie where it seems like Batman is genuinely screwed, as no matter how hard he fights, or what gadgets he uses, Bane just tanks it and utterly destroys him. This is why Bane is such a formidable opponent, as he's the only villain in this trilogy who physically surpasses Batman, and you can see Batman realize just how hopeless it is to win as the fight drags on and Bane just keeps coming. It also helps that all of Bane's lines here are fucking dope. It's also here that we learn what Alfred said was true, and Bane really was part of the League of Shadows, and is here to complete Raz's goal. I know some people have criticised the decision to make Bane part of the League of Shadows, and would have preferred him to not have any ties to past villains, but I don't mind it, as it is much for the most part, and it's nice they tie it back to Batman Begins, instead of just ignored it in favour of the more popular sequel. It also draws a nice parallel here between Batman and Bane, as Bane represents what Bruce could have become if he never left the League of Shadows. They both use fear as a weapon, they are both the most skilled members of the League, they both wear masks and have silly voices, etc. Their problems, however, are more so to do with the tryst regarding Talia later on, as well as their motivations. You see, the League's reason for destroying Gotham was because it was a symbol of corruption and had become a cesspool of crime or whatever. The thing is though, that at the beginning of the movie, it was said that Gotham was way safer now, so much so that it didn't need Batman anymore. So why does Bane want to destroy it again? It's not like they knew the piece was built on a lie when they begun their plan. I guess it's just because Talia wants revenge and Bruce's for Rage's death. If that's the case, just send Bane to Wayne Manor to kill him. What's even the point of this overcomplicated plan to destroy Gotham? Especially leaving it standing for 6 months instead of blowing it up immediately. But more on that in a minute. As you can see, their motivations are a bit flimsy. You have to really make a stretch for their plans to make sense. Anyways, after defeating Bruce, he's put into the pit where Bane was born and tells Bruce what his plans for Gotham. And I do at least try to justify why he doesn't blow it up immediately, with Bane saying he wants the city to feel the loss of hope before he kills everyone. Again though, I find this a pretty weak reason, as either if Gotham citizens prove him wrong and don't tear the city apart, he's still gonna blow them all up, as the city was already safe before he arrived in Gotham. So like I said, his plan just feels a bit dumb, and the only reason is for the sake of plot, is so Bruce has enough time to recover so he can stop Bane later. If they really wanted Bruce to suffer, I think just blowing Gotham up as he watches on the screen would be more than enough to break his spirit, and could just kill him afterwards instead of just leaving it standing for so long. Anyways, back in Gotham we get another really dumb moment where they send every cop in the city down to the tunnels to search for Bane and his men. This goes about as well as you'd expect, as Bane blows up bombs around the city, sealing the tunnels and blowing the bridges before turning Gotham into no man's land, as he threatens to blow up the city if the outside world tries to interfere with Gotham. Bane then releases all the prisoners from Blackgate and tells the truth about Harvey Dent, and this is actually such a good moment. I'm glad they take the time to address how it was wrong of Gordon and Batman to conceal the truth. I do like how Gordon desperately tries to justify the lie, only for Blake to dismiss his argument. I once again see just how much guilt he's feeling deep inside. I also like how Joker's philosophy he speaks of last film is fulfilled here, that being when the chips are down, these civilized people will eat each other, which we see happen here, as the whole city goes to shit effectively. I do actually like the no man's land elements of this film, as it does cement how hopeless the situation feels with no Batman around, that criminals start taking over. It's really nice seeing Scarecrow return, as the judge sentences people, even if it was only for a brief role, as he just revels in the chaos. It's interesting just seeing all our characters cope with this new apocalyptic scenario, like Gordon, Lucius and Blake, as they're all now pretty much fugitives, being hunted down by Bane's militia. I also do like the stuff in the pit with Bruce as well. It gets some very good moments throughout this whole subplot, as Bruce desperately tries to escape. Yeah, the way he recovers so quickly from his injury is very silly, and would definitely take a lot longer and be more complicated than just whipping a vertebrae back in place, but aside from that, I do like this subplot, as Bruce needs to learn to accept the fear of death again, and learn to start fighting for the right reasons, instead of just viewing all this as a way to obtain his perfect death. As like I said before, I think the way this movie ties up Bruce's arc is well handled. I like his interactions with the other two prisoners. I did love the moment of him finally escaping the pit, and tying that back to the why do we fall question, where Bruce though has to make the climb on his own without his father's help he had last time. It was very satisfying seeing him escape, as the moment where he becomes Batman once again. Anyways, things in Gotham get worse as they're making no progress in locating the bomb, as more and more of Gordon's men are either captured and killed, or straight up quit and stay in their homes to avoid being killed. A good chunk of this movie is spent following Blake's character, and I think he's an alright character, and represents what Batman's crusade was meant to aspire, that being an ordinary citizen following his example. But again, you do kind of forget at times this is supposed to be a Batman movie, of how little he's in it. I mean, I'm fine with him being missing here, since this whole part of the movie is designed to make you miss Batman, as the city is plunged into chaos, but this is why I still think he should have remained as Batman in the beginning, so he could have got more time with Bruce in the Sat suit. Anyways, Bruce arrives back in Gotham, and I would have at least like some explanation for how he was able to get in the sea. At the end of the day, he is Batman, so not that much of a stretch to assume he has some secret routes in, and here he meets up with Selina and requests her help to get in contact with Lucius. Seeing Batman return to save Gordon is a very satisfying moment, as we finally see the true reunite as citizens begin to have hope again. It does feel a little undermined by the fact this is the second time we're seeing Batman make his grand return after an extended period of time, but oh well, it's still a very good moment. Anyways, after he makes his return, he then proceeds to set the rest of the cops free using the Batwing. All the pieces are in place for the final showdown as Batman launches his attack on Bane. Another thing I have to credit this movie for that I hadn't mentioned before is that it does have a breathtaking sense of scale of how big the stakes are, but even just practically, it is very impressive they got all those people down there to film this final battle, as it really does look impressive on screen, even if the fighting still does look a bit fake in a couple of moments. Also, not gonna lie, the final fight with Bane is underwhelming, as not only does the fight choreography still not the best, but the way he defeats Bane is just very anticlimactic. I mean, he once again just does the same shit he did last time, except he just happens to get a lucky hit on the mask, and that's how he wins. I mean, sure, there's another way he could have defeated Bane than just that. Maybe something like Batman Begins, where he lures Bane into the courthouse, and gets a sequence similar to the dock scene from Begins, where he takes out Bane's men stealthily and strikes at them from the shadows, mirroring his first ever victory as Batman and using that to his advantage. Sure, of alluding to what Bane said earlier, except this time Batman truly makes the darkness his ally and triumphs over Bane. Anyways, Batman defeats Bane, and it's here we get our big twist. Miranda was Talia al Ghul and was a true mastermind the whole time. Yeah, as you can imagine, I don't really like this twist. It takes away from Bane's character to be following Talia's orders and not making him the true mastermind, and makes it so that the last villain of the trilogy is a character we don't care about, who's far inferior to all the other antagonists. Also, Bane goes out like a bitch in one of the lamest deaths to a main antagonist I've ever seen, as in a blink and you'll miss it moment. He's shot by Catwoman and never mentioned again afterwards. I mean, this is really the main villain of the movie, and that's how he goes out. That's a shame, because despite having some problems with the parts of his motive, I do think Bane was shaped up to be a great villain, but the twist and his lackluster death scene does take away from the character a bit. Anyways, Talia drives off in her armoured truck along with the fusion reactor, and both Batman and Catwoman give chase. Well, it's actually a pretty good chase scene with the Batwing dodging all the missiles, and the effects do hold up very well all these years later. Batman's able to stop the truck and does basically kill Talia and her henchmen here by shooting at their truck, but I suppose when the city is being minutes away from being blown up, I guess he's allowed to be a little bit more loose on the no-kill rule, especially since this version of Batman's already be willing to kill if absolutely necessary, like in the past with Two-Face. They open the door of the truck, and just when you thought Bane's death was disappointing, Talia gets an even worse death scene. I mean, come on, surely there was a better take they could have used. The actress is good, so they definitely could have had a better acted death scene with another take. They realise the bomb can't be stopped now, and Batman makes the decision to fly the bomb out of the city and sacrifice himself to save Gotham. You get a great moment where Batman reveals his identity to Jim. Their dynamic has been one of my favourites across the trilogy, so this was actually quite a touching moment, made even more emotional by the fact that we genuinely believe Batman's about to die as he flies off, saving Gotham as the bomb detonates far away from the city. To the movie's credit, I do really like the last 10 minutes and where all the characters end up. Again, the emotional scene at Bruce's grave, Alfred's reaction, Wayne Manor's turned into an orphanage for the kids who got nowhere to go, like Blake mentioned to Bruce before. Gordon finally gets some peace of mind being free from keeping a lie about Dent, and the city is finally safe. Even though his name being literally Robin is really silly, I do like the idea of Batman's legacy continuing on through Blake, though I do have to question how far he's really going to get about any of Batman's training. I mean, I get he is the Spirit and maybe Lucius could help out, but this is not pretend that ninja skills didn't come in handy for Bruce. I also do like Bruce's ending, where it's revealed he faked his death and both him and Alfred can live with the peace of mind that he was finally able to move past Batman. I know some people thought it would be more impactful if Bruce did die, but I personally feel that would have gone against his arc, which is he needed to gain the will to live and not simply live his life waiting for the perfect death to happen. So him dying wouldn't have fit the story for me. So overall, having gone over both the strengths and weaknesses of the movie, what are my thoughts on it? Well, personally, despite the movie having many flaws and being a bit of a mess at times, I think it ultimately still serves as a decent conclusion to the trilogy. It's definitely the weakest of the three movies for me, as some of the problems are too glaring for me to ignore. There are obviously several plot holes. I'm not a fan of the Talia twist, and the pacing can also leave a bit to be desired at times, especially the story successiveness is sometimes very little Batman in this Batman movie. But with that said, there are still plenty of things to like as well. I like Bruce's arc and how it ties up the main characters as well, and I think Bane still makes her a good villain in spite of a few issues. It does have several really good moments, like the stuff in the pit and the No Man's Land stuff, as well as some great lines from Bane, and it does tie up the story nicely at the end and leave it off satisfactorily in my opinion. It's definitely a big step down from The Dark Knight, but that is a very high bar to clear in fairness, as The Dark Knight is my favourite comic book movie, but ultimately, I think Rises still ties up the story well and provides a good ending to the main characters. Anyways, that's about it. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.